Hello everyone, this is Shadrach speaking, and this video is going to be a little different than what I normally do in the way of ASMR videos. Now, normally I'm on camera. As you can see, there's a lot of audio and there's a lot of images with this one. This video was requested by Blue Skye ASMR, and this chronicles my Gatlingburg, Savannah trip that I took in August. It was a very fun time. I must admit, there was a lot of interesting events here and there. In this image right here that you see, it was when I first left Florida. I took a photograph of this cloud that had a rather interesting rainbow in it. Now, you can't normally see the rainbow, but if you look closely you can. It looked as though it were like a waterfall, and I thought it was very impressive, so I took a photograph memorializing it, and I figured, well, it looked pretty good. I really wish that I could have taken a better photograph of it than this, but I was in a moving car, so I couldn't. This right here was the pasta dish that I had at the TGI's when I was in Gatlinburg. After a long trip, I was very hungry and ordered this pasta dish. It was Parmesan Alfredo, but then again, it could have been something entirely different. I don't remember the exact name. It was Parmesan pasta, they called it, or something like that. I don't remember, but I will tell you this. It was very delicious, and I loved every bit of it. I may order it again should I go to TGI Fridays. This right here is an F-100 Ford truck. It was in one of the local distilleries located in Gatlinburg. It was used back in the day to deliver moonshine. Very impressive truck, if you ask me. This right here was the Skyline of Gatlinburg. I took this photograph on the second floor balcony of one of the many buildings that they had. As you can tell, this is why the Smoky Mountains are called the Great Smoky Mountains. They look like real smoke. In fact, I remember one time we were in North Carolina, my dad and I literally were so high in the mountains we drove through a cloud. The Skylift Park in Gatlinburg. To be honest with you, it was a little nerve-wracking to go up the cables, but needless to say, it was very fun. It was very impressive when we got up to the top. I'll show you later. The Skywalk, or rather, the Rickety Bridge, or the Sky Bridge, I don't remember what it was called. But it had a glass covering right here that you could look down and see things. I know what you're saying. Shadrach, how did you cross that thing? How in the world did you manage to cross that thing? Well, my advice to you is if you walk this bridge, you may want to hold onto the railing, number one, and number two, look forward. Believe me, it worked for me. But I did look down it once, just to see what it was like. The ravine down below was very, how should I put it to you? Very high. Just looking at it brings back memories of the uncertainty that I had. But I got through it. I even got a hat, or a t-shirt. I think it was a t-shirt. Anyways, moving onward. Here was some of the fountains at the Skylift Park. They looked very beautiful. Very impressive, you know. Amazing that somebody actually built all this, especially up on the mountains. This was me coming back from the Skylift. Come to think of it, I actually rode it twice. Once you get used to riding it, it's not much of a problem. You just remain calm. You're going to be fine. Just don't act like a fool, and you have nothing to worry about. Here's some of the shops that I went to. I really like how shops that are small like this are so close together. It looks like a little neighborhood. Very impressive group of stores over there. In fact, there was one store, or rather one little shopping area called The Village, that resembled a European village. We'll talk about some of the stores I went in there later. Here's some more of the back stores over there. Actually, this was a restaurant. I didn't get a chance to eat in it though, but looking back, if I could do it all over again, I would. This right here was one of the many interesting red phone booths that I saw on my trip. This is actually one of three, and to be honest with you, it really adds to the aesthetic of the village. It looks very beautiful, if you ask me. I'm not sure if that was a plant hanging in there or a reflection. but either way it looks very interesting. While in the village, I came across my very first cheese shop. There were candies, but there was a lot in the way of cheese. I managed to buy something over there. It looked very impressive. A lot of cheeses, I could tell you that. Here's some more of the cheese. What you see in the window, by the way, are just props. And standing outside is my dad. They haven't had a lot of snacks, but I went into the cheese shop for one thing, to obtain a block of cheese. I'll show you what I got later. In the Hall of Illusions. It was more of a gimmicky kind of thing. Very interesting time. It was very fun to pass around, to pass the time and everything. I would have to say it's more for youngins than anything else. But it was interesting to see all the mannequins and all the displays. To Kalichi Caverns. That's Kalichi. It was the first time I was ever inside a real cavern. Here's a better photograph of the caverns that we took. You can see, if you look closely, there's a little river inside the cavern. I also am amazed that someone actually went through this and actually built the lights and the railing. Makes you wonder who did all that. Here's some more of the cavern. And from the looks of things, there's more lighting and more railing. But to say that I was inside a real cavern, now that is something worth talking about. Remember the cheese shop from before? Well, this was later on that evening when we were back in the motel room. The hotel room. It was a hotel. I always get those two mixed up. Yes, that is a block of cheese. It was cheese chocolate. And since I'm a big chocoholic, and I'm also a cheeseaholic, I figured I endure the best of both worlds. Believe me, it was very delicious. I still have it in the fridge. I still have some left in the fridge. Yes, I know, I had to say it twice. I'm very hungry right now. I may go get some as I'm craving chocolate right now. But let's progress. Right here I'm posing with Batman and Robin. I went inside the Gatlingburg, Tennessee car museum. It had a lot of cars from various different television shows and movies, yet they were missing quite a few items. But there were also a number of celebrity vehicles, such as Dolly Parton's car, and Mike Tyson's car. Even Elvis's car was there. But this pose with Batman and Robin was pretty cool. I've been watching the 1966 Batman, just a little heads up. This right here was Mike Tyson's Lamborghini. Yes, Mike Tyson himself. There was a video where Mike Tyson was signing the title to the car museum and made quite an impressive profit. Here we have is one of the DeLoreans that was used in Back to the Future. If you've not seen Back to the Future, you are missing out on a great movie. I don't care how old it is. It's still a classic. I mean, who came up with the idea of having a car as a time machine? Oh wait, Robert Zemeckis. Here was something in the Ripley's Believe It or Not museum. If you look at the plates, actually it's the national anthem on car plates. Or license tags, I should say. License tags. You can even make out all the words and everything. Yep. Poor Shadrach here got stuck into a bowl, and they tried turning me into a shrunken head. But I managed to get out. Why? Because I'm that awesome. When we rode the Uber Gatlinburg cable car, I came across this very interesting sign that was on a pizza building. Again, it was one of those many restaurants I didn't go to. There were so many good places to eat over there. But I found this entire picture right here to be very, very funny. It says, "Do not jump, though it is worth it." Or even though it's worth it. I bet that pizza's very good. Here we have is Gatlinburg. That was the same tower from the photograph I took earlier. However, we were riding the cable car to Uber Gatlinburg. Those are the towers that hold up the cable car. Everyone was all nervous but me. It was exciting. Yep, there's me. I took this picture after losing my Atari hat. Yeah, I was riding the mountain coaster and my hat blew off. I did get it back though. But a few days later, in the mail. I'm actually happy to have my hat back. Okay, enough looking at my mug. Let's continue onward. That right there was the meatball sub that I had. Although my hat had blown off, I was nonetheless assured that I'd get my hat back. But that meatball sub was very delicious. One of the few impressive images of Kate's Cove. Kate's Cove, to put it mildly, was just a disaster. Too crowded. Can't see anything. Only impressive things about it were the old buildings, but other than that, Kate's Cove was a disaster. Here's another ancient building from Kate's Cove, and if you ask me, the building's made up for everything. This right here was taken in Savannah. Interesting fact, while we were leaving Gatlingburg, my dad and I decided, should we go home or go to Savannah? We both opted to go to Savannah because it had the 8th Air Force Museum, so we decided to spend one more day, this time in Savannah. Now what you see right here, these little models during World War II were to help Allied soldiers in Europe, or rather, I should say, Allied soldiers in England, distinguish between friend and foe. This was during the Battle of Britain, and the British soldiers, not knowing who was friend or foe, needed something to help them distinguish between the two. So these models were put in place. Here's some of the patches that were worn by the 8th Air Force. So many patches with so many different meanings. Now that right there is the main focal, the mainstay of the 8th Air Force Museum. That right there is a B-17 City of Savannah being restored and rebuilt. I really wish I could have gone on the thing, but they had it roped off because of Corona. But to be honest with you, it was the most impressive image so far. Imagine it was because of these planes that we were able to win the Second World War against Hitler's European Empire. Here's another one of the phone booths. However, this was more to add to the aesthetic of the Air Museum. Looks pretty cool, huh? That right there was the lobby. But I wasn't done, so I decided to continue looking around. Here's some of the museum pieces, the equipment, the displays and everything, like the equipment that the soldiers had, or rather the airmen had back then. Here's some of the costumes that were worn by civilians and airmen. This was more around the, I think it was like the POW camps or something. They had an entire mock-up of POW camps. It was pretty cool. I didn't show it on here because I don't want to ruin the fun for everyone. Here's more equipment that they had, and if you look closely you can see me somehow in the display case. How I got in the display case, well, it's pretty obvious if you see my cell phone. Now, here's a fun thing. My dad and I were about to go on the road and have a meal, but then I said, "Hey Dad, there's a restaurant there, let's go check that out." And it was done up like an actual English pub. Trust me. It even had a dartboard, it even had its little mirror behind the counter, everything. But that meal right there was one of the best I had, even better than the pasta I had in Gatlingburg, and that held me all day. It was so delicious. If there's one reason I'd go back to Savannah, it would be to have that meal all over again. It looked that delicious. And it was delicious too. Just looking at it makes me hungry for it again. Here is the last phone booth of my entire trip. To be openly honest with you, it was very impressive, to take pictures of these phone booths. However, this one was in the lobby. And that was the third and final red phone booth I saw on my trip. But above all else, I had a lot of fun. This right here was the F4, and it was outside. Before I left, I was able to snap a quick photograph of it because it looked very cool and impressive. This right here, I think, was a MiG-17, MiG-17. In closing, I'm going to say that I had a great trip. It was pretty fun. I hope to go back soon. Thank you for enjoying this video.